A warm welcome from my colleague Maria Seker and I to this workshop, How can entrepreneurship be integrated into engineering programs? My name is Johan Karlstedt and I'm the director for the program Future Enterprise at the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. In this program at the Academy, we have projects on digitalization, research and commercialization, innovation, and of course, entrepreneurship. Mainly in two projects, the Princetonian Fellowship and the Swedish Entrepreneurship Academy. With the Entrepreneurship Academy, we want to promote entrepreneurship in Sweden through different ways, but we want to be the national arena for exchange of experiences, knowledge acquisition, and policy development in most important areas. But one of our mainly focus is, of course, entrepreneurship education. And that's because the education system is the foundation to strengthen entrepreneurship in the long perspective for the society. And entrepreneurship education also builds the entrepreneurial competence that we need for the future. To work with that area, we have created a network for entrepreneurship educators, among other things. It's an open arena to stimulate collaboration, dialogue, and joint actions to improve entrepreneurship education in different ways. We have identified the need to integrate entrepreneurship into more programs and courses in Sweden. And that's the main point why we are offering this workshop today. With that said, I would like to introduce today's moderator. It's Maddie Savage. She's a freelance journalist and presenter from the UK. Maddie has a background of reporting for the UK and global TV news. She has anchored BBC World Service radio programs that reaches up to 50 million people a week. And for the last 5 years, she's been reporting on the Stockholm startup scene. So it's with great pleasure and joy, I hand over the screen to you, Maddie, to guide us through this afternoon. Most welcome, Maddie. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks very much, Johan. It is great to be here and part of this event at the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. And as Johan mentioned, I have a background reporting on innovation and entrepreneurship through my role as a journalist. So I'm really excited to be joining this seminar as well and having a chance to listen in on some fantastic speakers and learning a little bit more about how we can strengthen entrepreneurship education. So my role, I'll be guiding you through the next hour. I'll be putting your questions to our keynote speaker, Cheryl Root, and I think she can pop her camera on hopefully now and just give us a little wave so that we know she's there. If not, she'll pop up any moment. There we go. Welcome, Cheryl. So as most of you will know already, as you've decided to join this seminar, Cheryl is Associate Professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Silicon Valley. So she's been surrounded by entrepreneurs, past, present, and future for years. She's also Program Director of the prestigious Technology Ventures program. She's a highly respected teacher in software management as well. And crucially for this webinar, she has created a model to integrate entrepreneurship education into her university's engineering program. So we're going to be learning a little bit about how that worked, what the challenges are, and how it can potentially be adapted for use in Sweden and elsewhere. So I hope that you're all ready to get inspired. As I mentioned, do send in your questions. I'll be putting them to Cheryl shortly, but first she's going to kick things off with a presentation.
Okay, good morning. Let's see, there we go. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the internet today and with Microsoft. Not a surprise. Good morning, and thank you. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm so lucky to have my good companion, colleague, and brilliant lady, Jenny Ellsberg, with me for this discussion. I thank you for taking this time to learn more about entrepreneurship and how we've integrated engineering and business and creating new entrepreneurial efforts with our program. So let's get started. So what I'm going to cover today is how we created this program, as well as what the results of it have been and what the goals were for working with multidisciplines and diverse teams. And then we will talk about how we actually created the program, and then go to a fireside chat with Jenny from Volvo at that time, and is now at back in Sweden. And we'll talk about how her experience when she was with Volvo working with us, how that worked. And then we'll go into general Q&A. So moving right along, just some basics. Carnegie Mellon has been around for quite a while. We have over 14,000 students in many countries. We have over 110,000 alumni, and in the Silicon Valley, we have approximately 6,000 alums here. And we started in the 2000 offering degrees outside of Pittsburgh, and Silicon Valley campus was established 2003, and we have approximately 300 masters only with some PhDs students. These are some of the locations where we are, and what's really great being in Silicon Valley, I always say I'm the farthest out from administration, so I get to explore and find new ways to think about things and ask for forgiveness. So this is our campus, and we are on the NASA campus there in Silicon Valley, which makes it very nice. We're bi-coastal. For the degree that we're going to be talking about, the Masters in Technology Ventures is a bi-coastal, 1 year in Pittsburgh, 1 year in Silicon Valley. And the other degrees that are here, we have a software management degree, we have a network and cybersecurity degree, and we have a software engineering through our ECE compatriots. We have a huge opportunity here in Silicon Valley to have the mixture of educational institutions and of the businesses that are interested in sustaining innovation, as well as startups, pre-accelerators, venture capitalists, and our alums who are also helping to fund our programs. So here we created the Integrated Innovation Institute. And what the intent is to break down the silos that impede innovation. I had an opportunity to speak with and work with Padma Warrior, and one of her comments was, I can always hire an engineer, but what I want is an engineer that understands business, is able to talk to marketing, customers, and be able to solve problems with multidisciplines of engineering. And so that was one of our guidelines in creating the Integrated Institute. Instead of having separate silos of engineering, design, and business in the college, we at the III have integrated the three. And so when you are working in our programs, you spend time with our outstanding educators that are in the engineering field and in the design field in Pittsburgh. And then here in Silicon Valley, it's all about entrepreneurship, business management, and the creation of new capability and new products and new businesses, and thus creating new jobs. So the MST degree was created so that diverse teams could apply multiple disciplines to take the entrepreneurial efforts to our society's problems, and making sure that along the way that the students were actually doing a learning by doing versus a lecture regurgitation approach. So they actually have the opportunity to work with the companies here in Silicon Valley, with startup people in Silicon Valley, and current entrepreneurs who are still working within the campus here, as well as in Pittsburgh. We have the Schwartz Center in Pittsburgh, which is a wonderful business environment for people who want to become entrepreneurs there as well. We created this curriculum that has multiple engineering disciplines. So for example, I pull in students who are in civil engineering or in mechanical engineering or in biomed engineering, and they work together to solve problems. And I'll show you some examples of how that works. We had to get approval at 3 different levels to make this happen. It took the curriculum committee to look at the ability to be accredited with the kind of content that we were producing. It took the faculty committee to agree to work across the disciplines and approve the program, as well as the provost and the president. This was all done in 3 months, amazingly. I had a great mentor who I worked with, and we were able to define the program, create it, and get approvals. And we started it actually with new students in the first of 2017. This meant that we had to do a lot of things that included how we did admissions across departments, how we marketed across departments, and how we managed to have faculty that could understand the combination of design, engineering, and business management. So we also have a great support staff in admissions, because that person has to work across all the units in the campus. And we have a student advisor that has to keep all of these pieces pulled together and work with the student advisors in each of the individual engineering units. And we have our marketing program, which has more than a website. It's a strong outreach, strong visibility. We encourage creative thinking in making MSTV work. That's both for our students, as well as our staff and faculty, as well as the companies that we work with. We work very tightly with our companies, more than just looking at a research project, but truly being partners with them. Okay, so how have we sustained it? We are looking at regular interactions that I do with the engineering departments to keep them up to date. They also recommend students to our program for those who are wanting to be new product creators, whether it's in a corporation or whether it's in an actual new startup. We complement the research work that is being done in the engineering institutes with the actual application of the concepts. And in fact, we recently added the physics department to our team. And what we're working on there is quantum physics and data analytics, which allows the physics department to have now a master's degree in addition to their PhD. We have regular interactions with conversations between business leaders and faculty. I run a program called Conversations at the Knoll, which brings together the leaders of Silicon Valley companies here and our faculty and discuss where we can sustain Silicon Valley, where we can sustain innovation, and how we keep generating people who are thinking of new ways to solve problems. And when we have those conversations, I actually put them into teams and make them work just like I do my students. The summer experience course, we created that in order for students to live in a startup environment. Jenny and I are going to talk about that shortly. The summer experience, some people mistakenly call it an internship, but it's actually a course. And what we do there is make sure that the student sees all the workings of a startup. And that means everything from being able to talk to a customer, looking at the funders, talking to the founders, and working with developers so that they see all aspects of the building of an entrepreneurial effort before they come in for their last year. So this summer experience is between the end of their year in Pittsburgh for engineering and the beginning of their year in Sausalito, where we put them in the business management classes. And I'll show you what those classes are shortly. We also established a bridge for graduating students to take their ideas to investors, and that is called the Venture Bridge. And originally, when I designed it, started here in Silicon Valley as a pre-accelerator, and it's now campus-wide in that we have it both in Pittsburgh as well as in Silicon Valley. We expanded the concepts of the program on a global basis. We recently added Scotland and their engineering group into our program so that students can take a year in Scotland at Strathclyde and be able to do their engineering degree there, come here, spend the summer in the full program of the MSTV and get an MSTV degree in addition to their Strathclyde degree. And we are looking at other countries, universities on a global basis to do the same thing, where we share the experience, share the knowledge, and create greater value on a global basis. So what does this program look like? Okay, so the Master of Science, as I said, is in 2 locations. It is either a dual degree where you can get your degree refreshed for your engineering and a degree in MSTV, or it can be a direct degree where you come in for 16 months straight into the MSTV. And people who come to the program are typically wanting to be an entrepreneur. And again, I stress that that is within a company as well as for a startup on their own. I'll show with you later where some of these students have landed. They will also want to specialize in technology. A lot of them are working with AI, robotics, the IoT, and other types of high-tech environments, and are very excited about solving problems. And what it really does is it takes the need for the multiple engineering disciplines to work together. And that's another thing that the students like here. We blend software engineers right in with the hardware engineers, right within the business management people. So going on, it's a, like I said, it's a dual degree or a direct degree. And we also support their ability to take their idea to the market. We don't just push them at the door at the end of graduation. We stay with them if they've got a really strong idea, and that's the Venture Bridge program. It's the bridge to the world of making your product come to life. And what we have there are mentors, coaches, and financial resources, as well as physical resources provided to those students who go on to the Venture Bridge. So we have the partnerships. These are some of the groups that we work with within the College of Engineering, which has all the engineering disciplines. And we've now, like I said, added physics, which is outside of the College of Engineering. But the work that they're doing in quantum physics is really key to the engineering world and new computers. So this is the structure for the program. It's like I said, starts in Pittsburgh. And there are 2 terms, fall and spring. And in the spring is a grand challenge. And all students in the MSTV program, whether they are dual or direct, take the grand challenge. And I'll describe that in a second. Then they do the summer experience in Silicon Valley. And then in Silicon Valley, they spend 2 terms working on the business management and putting products in the marketplace. This is Strathclyde. We started working with them about, I think it was a year and a half ago, and my team knows better how much time ago it was. It does take a little bit of effort because you have to make sure the accreditation is balanced and that both sides are able to sustain their accreditation processes, as well as students being able to have a degree from both colleges. This is what it looks like for Strathclyde, slightly different. And that's another nice thing, being out here in Silicon Valley, we can adapt to our markets and our opportunities. And so where we have in the traditional dual degree, we have our engineering start first. And here for Strathclyde, you can see we've shifted around so that Strathclyde can have the ability to finish their degree in Strathclyde versus start their degree in Strathclyde. So they come in, they take the Grand Challenge, they spend the fall in the original coursework, and then shift in at the end back to Strathclyde, so that we've managed to not only look at how we blend our two schools, but also how we enable the students to get the full experience and be able to sustain both colleges. So the Venture Bridge is always at the end. It is after graduation. And typically Venture Bridge has people who are in the program that are 1 to 3 years out from having graduated. So in other words, you can go into Venture Bridge if you've really worked through, for example, I hold a class called the Startup Creation. If you have an idea that you've worked on and you've got that pretty solid, you can present it in April, be accepted into Venture Bridge at the end of May, and work through the summer with the people who are helping keep your product together and marketable. They really focus on what's the go-to-market, how do you get connected to the venture capital world, and how do you make sure your presentation and your MVP is pretty solid in order to move it into production. It is a pre-accelerator. It is not an accelerator. We do not take a piece of the action, so to speak. We think that they will typically give back, and they do. The people who have gone through the program and have successfully done startups have gone back and hired our students, have interned our students, and come back and discuss their challenges and creating their product along the way. So this Venture Pre-Accelerator allows the graduate students to work with the faculty continually, the investors, the alums, the mentors, and the companies. We have several companies that work and support these people. We have relationships in Silicon Valley with the plug and play environment, with the Y Combinator people, with many ventures. We have noticed that the venture community has been more going into specific areas as opposed to general. And so knowing how to target the right venture to the right entrepreneurial effort is really important for us. And we've been expanding our network in this process. We have a much larger network of support from companies, support from VCs, and support from alums. The Grand Challenge is in the spring of the first year, and it is intended to look at 6 to 7 societal type problems where you're looking at how to create a solution that can address that problem and how to explore it, how to use critical thinking, how to look at the ability to resolve some issues. And there's been some major opportunities that have come through this that have gone on even further. So they developed this method in the course, and it's through the whole term of the spring, which is 2 minis. Okay, so we have a term that goes from like middle of January to middle of May. This class runs the whole term, where normally our class sessions are 8 and 8. So 8 weeks and 8 weeks for minis. So they work on this. They have companies come in and provide these problems, and they increase their ability to not only solve a problem, but how to communicate back. So when we bring in a company, for example, that company participates in the presentation of the students' conclusions and actually contributes to the comments on their grading and the ability that they showed in answering or developing an answer for the problem given. It's a way to get the students used to thinking about how do I take my innovation to other people. and then we work on how to take it to market. This is an example. One of them was how can we improve the prenatal health care in rural communities? And this is what the students came up with, such that people that are in remote areas can have access to healthcare in a very delicate time. And they were able to make this all available through smartphones. That was one of the tasks. Okay. Now, this is the fun one. This is where we're working with companies for this summer experience. We work with not only Volvo, but Apple and Google. We work with startups, people who are just getting their ideas together. And we have the summer experience as a class. The students have to keep a journal for the 12 weeks that they're doing this. And in addition to the journal, they write a paper at the end identifying what their perspective was on a startup. And there's several questions that they address on this, and I can answer some questions on that later. But the intent here is to not only engage our companies with these brilliant students, but to go beyond and create a real partnership like we have with Volvo. Not only did they do the summer experience, but they brought actual problems to the class for the class to deal with. They also had provided guest lectures on the technology arena that they were in and where they were looking for new thinking. And then what we also do is I have regular gatherings twice a year where we put together the students that are working on their MST degree, along with the faculty, along with all of the sponsors that have been working. So we bring in SRI, we bring in Apple, we bring in all of the community that has helped us through the summer and providing these summer experiences, as well as alums and venture capitalists. And the venture capitalists love to be able to talk not only to the students, but the companies and where they're going. So we're learning a lot, and they're learning a lot as a result of these events, what I call gathering events. And as I mentioned before, we also have the conversations at the Knoll, and we also invite them in as guest speakers. Some of the guest speakers, besides Jenny, we've had Alvy Ray Smith, who's co-founder of Pixar, talk about how technology changes. We had Matt Rogers, who's also an alum of CMU, former Nest CEO, speak about how climate change is an issue and where he's taking his investments now, and asking students to help come up with new ideas to solve that problem. We had Marty Kagan talk about product management. So we have quite a few talented guest speakers that we make available to all the students on the campus here in Silicon Valley. And with the pandemic, it was a little easier to get some of these people because they didn't have to travel to the campus. And as a result, we had incredibly huge attendance for these activities. But what's one other thing that these wonderful people that we work with get? They get first choice at the students that are coming out. We've had people who are in this program get hired by virtue of being able to have contact with all of these wonderful companies here in Silicon Valley. And as an example, Luke was a graduate in 2018, and he worked at SRI, and SRI brought him in. He originally was thinking he'd go back and run his family's business, but instead he is working on new ventures and is working with the team at SRI that also creates that. And he's also a member of Plug and Play. And then we have our two, Dong and Zen, who are both really talented individuals, and they didn't think that they could do what they ended up doing. Dong went back to the family. Zen is at Ernst & Young as a consultant, and works in the field of engineering and technology and how to apply it. So the opportunities are as broad as the students can think. We have people who are entrepreneurs in residence. We have people who are senior product managers. We have people who've got startups going. And in fact, when we look at it, the coursework is all about how to think differently, how to look at ideas and how to take them into the marketplace. And in this particular course, for example, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Stuart goes through how to look at, and he brings in tremendous speakers every week into the class that are out of this Silicon Valley ecosystem, and being able to look at the way in which they solve problems that they are still dealing with, and what's the process by which you go about solving a problem and getting it out in the market. It's a great class, and that one is a full term, the whole spring, fall term. We have product management, and product management is really key today because product managers are influencers. They have to work between both the R&D team and the marketing and sales team, and they have to make sure that we are phasing product into the market in a way in which the customer can actually absorb it. It teaches the students to get out of the building and go talk to customers and interpret those customer needs into potential solutions. There's the skills that go along with that of communication and how to make decisions, what your decision-making process is, and also applying critical thinking in terms of solving problems to make sure that you have the real problem and not a symptom. All too often we tend to attack the symptom before we really understand what the problem is. So this is a great class that students take. Now, here's some of the results of the past graduates that we've had. We have people who have done a startup. We have people who have gone to work at places like Oracle. We have one I'm going to talk about in a minute, Refibered, a startup that she just graduated in 2020, went through Venture Bridge, and is now on the road to getting her product in the marketplace. We had a business analyst. We have a senior product manager at LinkedIn. So it's a variety of positions. And so you can see some of these are CEO founders of startups. Others are just young enough that they still need some more experience. And so they go into product engineering or the management consulting to get more exposure. They have an idea, like the gentleman that's at Ernst & Young has a great idea that I've been coaching him on the side. And we still work together while he's developing this idea. In the meantime, he's gaining incredible experience working with Ernst & Young, looking at a lot of problems in the area that he's interested in. This is a story I was telling you about. This is Sarika. She came through the program. She was a ECE, which is electrical computer engineering student, and her engineering discipline, then became an MSTV graduate, and as well as a master's graduate in her ECE engineering side. She came in with an idea that was all set around nonprofit business and trying to get people to be more aware of how much trash was going out there in terms of fabric. And instead of just holding on to that, we turned it into a business idea where she is now repurposing fiber, where if you throw away your Levi's, for example, she can take all the metal parts out, shred it, take the dye out, and repurpose the fabric into a new string of thread and make new fabric from it. And is looking to remove 70% of the waste that sits out there in our landfills. And she went through Venture Bridge, was funded during the summer for that, this last summer, and is now, her program was selected by South by Southwest, which is a huge conference on entrepreneurs, and she was the winner for the startup creation. And she's now just now moving on to funding. She's with NSF as well as a private. These are the type of instructors that we have. And these are what I would call real world people. These people have been in the business. For example, Lake was one of the early founders with Alibaba, ran Yahoo Search, has done 3 startups, is now a VC partner, and she is AI expert, and she's been working with us for the last 5 years. And Adrienne Ott is another one. She's an NSF instructor, which is pretty high up in that. Those NSF are the National Science Foundation, which helps sustain entrepreneurs. We have various talent. Jorge was CTO for Omnicell, had 750 researchers and developers in medical products. Ravi is our financial expert. So we have this wonderful range of talent of people who have done startups, have lived in the Silicon Valley, and are very good at sharing their knowledge, their values, and their experiences. So with that, I'd like you to meet Jenny Ellsberg. And I thought it would be wonderful for you to hear what we were working with when she was at Volvo. So can you bring up Jenny, please? There she is.
Yes.
Good morning,
Hello.
Jenny.
Good morning.
Good afternoon to you. Good morning to me. Yeah. So Jenny, tell me a little about the experience and why you did participate with us way back when.
Mm-hmm. So my experience with CMU before I met with Cheryl came from a capstone project in Integrated Innovation Institute with Jonathan Kagan and Peter Boatwright. So one thing that is important to remember is that I already had very positive opinions and experiences from CMU. So when Peter said, you should meet Cheryl, of course I did. Moving on to what we did, we had these summer experience students. 2 summers, I was only in Silicon Valley for 2 years to set up the Innovation Hub. And we combined 3 different students with different backgrounds. And we did this together with the CMU staff. So we got a good combination of super ambitious students. And I would say it's like a triple win. You know, I can bring the real world as the industry defines it. And for Cheryl and her team, that means Silicon Valley startup-like experience. And then for the students, well, they get that, but they also provide to Volvo super fresh, you know, straight out of the grad student program competences that, yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer, but my education is kind of ancient. So it's really, you know, an opportunity to bring on board new knowledge and also get this extra team of 3 that can help us to explore, because the Innovation Hub has one responsibility, and that is, you know, to be entrepreneurial within the huge company and with partners, of course.
Right. Yeah, we had what now 3 years of this, and usually we try to send more than one to Volvo because they can create as a team. And for example, last summer it was a Mechie person, an ECE person, and I think the other one was a Chemi that was there. And what is your perspective on the blending of the engineering thinking versus single engineering?
Well, it's because these students are, you know, entering the technology venture and entrepreneurship program. They come with, well, they do have the deep competence. If you talk about the T-shaped individuals, so they do have deep engineering skills. So you don't need to be babysitting them on that. And then they have this I want to build a startup ambition. And then if you combine their competences, you can actually, I gave them, or my team, we gave them like 8 different project prompts, and then they could pick and choose a little bit, like go after them one at a time. And because they are a mini multidisciplinary team, they can come a lot further without needing supervision or needing advice. And that is not because Volvo is lazy. It's actually because if these brilliant, super ambitious young minds think together, they will come to the Volvo internal people with more ownership, with this is what we think, than if we would like supervise them step by step. So I love that concept.
Yes, I thought that was one of the best, in terms of, like you said, the conflict, making them have the discussion. And then you were such a good coach for them as well. And in terms of how you guided the students that you had the opportunity to work with, because I think that's another aspect, going beyond just research. What we did was look at solving problems and this learning by doing with real hands-on. And the work that they did could be applied beyond just that summer experience. So Maddie, you must be thinking you have questions now, right?
Yeah, I'm just jumping on because we do have a couple of questions and I want people who haven't sent theirs in to have enough time to do so. So you can do that using the function on the event web link. But thanks both of you, some really useful insights so far about the program, the nuts and bolts of how it works, cooperation with industry. So I'm sure people have found this really valuable to watch. Just a few questions then. So Cheryl, you talked a little bit about future career options for some of these entrepreneurial engineers, but we've got one question in saying, if more and more graduates take this route, do you see a kind of market shift towards a gig economy for engineers? And how freely do you see them moving between different types of entrepreneurship roles?
I wouldn't say it's a gig economy. I think that the entrepreneurs are trying to create new business. I don't think it's like, I'm just going to go out and do this job, for example. What we try to do is enable students to have a career, not a job. And where Jenny talked about a T kind of person, I call them the pie, P-I, not a round pie. And where the long part of the pie is the skill that they have in engineering, but now they're adding this new discipline of how do I solve problems? How do I take the problem to the real world? And it's a journey. So when you think of the pie shape that has that little swoosh, that's the journey that you're on. Some days you're up, some days you're down, some days you hit it, some days you don't. But I think that we look for careers more than gigs. And I think that the entrepreneurs are rapidly moving in creating new business. 3 of the people who've gone out and started companies, their businesses have been acquired. One of them is the CEO of his business within their company, for example.
And just going right back to the beginning, you were obviously very successful in terms of persuading your institution that this was a good idea. But what would be your tips and recommendations to those at other institutions that are thinking, well, how can I convince others that we should go down this route as well? Because as we all know, academia can be a bit slow moving at times.
I would say have 2 things. One, have an influencer on the inside. And I had a really good companion in John Kagan that helped me put the pieces together and critique it and then help move it through. And then have an external evidence like Jenny, where you say, see, this is what can be done. And I think it takes both. You need, like when you walk into a meeting, to know who you can align with, as well as how many people raise their hand and say, we really want this. And so you need both the evidence and the influencer in the process.
Have there been other, do feel free to pick up, Jenny.
Yeah, I wanted to add there, Maddie, because one thing that I think works really well for CMU is that they actually, like they say in Silicon Valley, they eat their own dog food. So even if they have the theoretical knowledge about entrepreneurship and innovation and business creation, thanks to Cheryl's program, they are actually showing that they know it's not only talk. So.
Thank you.
Great. One other question that's just come in, and this probably will be the last one we have time for, is how important is it to have good networks with the companies before starting out? I guess, you know, did you have all of these connections lined up, or did you have to do a lot of hustling to get the VCs and the companies on board as well?
I wouldn't say you have to have them all lined up. You have to have an outward bound look, and networks extend networks. For example, I didn't know Jenny before Peter introduced me to her. And by the way, Peter is the head of the III, the Integrated Institute. And if I had finished through the last two of my slides, you'd have seen his bio on the last slide. But he has a network, my faculties have network. And what we do is we put them all together. And then I hire faculty that brings a network with them. They're not just there to regurgitate a class. They're there to expand students' opportunities. Students are the customers, and I think people need to remember that. And so the network works out to be the combination of all the people that you engage. Yes, I had some great contacts, some great people that I worked with, but one fed another. And I think that's the more important thing, is how do you look at your network? What do you think, Ginny?
Yeah, I agree. And also the alumni are happy customers, so they will be loyal and, you know, continue to build the network. So I think you have a success story there.
Yeah, and of course, these days, events like this and the fact that we can all go online, you don't have to physically have to be having those lunches and those handshakes to build those networks these days.
But it's still important. I wouldn't dismiss the opportunity to meet in person, because the eye contact, the body, and the energy that you start to, that's what I love about Silicon Valley. There's a buzz that goes on here. Everybody's wanting to see, learn, and do something. And as a result, you can't even go to a restaurant around here where you're not hearing somebody talk about a new venture.
Must be fascinating. I'd love to eat up on some of those restaurants. One very last question that's just come in, because it is so great to have so much interaction from the audience. So thank you for that. It just says, do you think we as a society are missing a lot of bright ideas because PhD students don't normally have such training and are normally focused on more core research questions? Jenny's nodding her head. Jenny actually mentioned she's doing a PhD alongside her her work. So perhaps you'd like to pick up on that.
Yeah, Jen.
No, it's obvious. It's totally obvious. We have to train the students in the, you know, sales pitch and collaboration and business. You know, you can actually, alongside with your brilliant tech idea, work on your business. It's like a, you know, integrate the whole journey. I think we should definitely fix that in the Swedish system as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that with the Venture Bridge. We have PhDs working side by side with some of the students that are taking their ideas and putting them in the market. Some of them become the CEOs, others become the chief technical officer for the solution. But that's one of the reasons I like our Schwartz Center and the Venture Bridge program. It brings together the people. It is not to say that I believe we need the PhDs doing that research. And we need the people saying, where can we go apply this? We wouldn't have the ability to fight this pandemic if we didn't have the PhDs doing all the hard work there, the deep work.
Wise words. Okay, thank you very much to both of you. Fantastic to have you with us for this seminar. I know that there's definitely some useful takeaways for everyone from your program at Carnegie Mellon University. Cheryl, and thanks very much for joining us, Jenny, as well, representing the industry side of things. Now, I know that a few of you have signed up, those of you who are part of the Network of Entrepreneurship Educators at universities in Sweden. You've signed up for a digital roundtable where we'll continue some of those discussions. That's in about 10 minutes time, and there's a separate link for that, so do log off and log in again for that. But for the rest of you, thank you very much for taking the time to be here, and on behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, they'd like to say thank you once again, and also please do send in your feedback on the event. You should get a link to your email shortly after this, so you can let us know what you got out of the event and what could be done even better. better. So goodbye from me, Maddie Savage. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great evening in the sunshine for many of us here in the Nordics and wherever else you are. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.